Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Okay, so today we are talking about something that has been all over my social media feeds for weeks now, something that football fans and music fans and K-pop fans and honestly just regular people who happen to watch the World Cup opening ceremony are all debating simultaneously, and that tells me we have hit something that genuinely matters beyond any single community or any single fan base. We are talking about goals versus dreamers. The 2026 FIFA World Cup official anthem performed by Lisa, Anita, and Rema versus the 2022 FIFA World Cup official anthem performed by Jungkook of BTS and Fahad Al-Kubaisi. And specifically we are asking the question that everyone seems to be asking whether they want to admit it or not, which is this: why, in 2026, with a brand new World Cup happening right now on American soil, with a brand new official song that has had months of massive global rollout and marketing and promotion behind it, does every single conversation about goals somehow circle back to dreamers? Why does Jungkook keep coming up? Why is a song from 2022 still the thing that people reach for when they want to describe what a World Cup anthem should feel like? And I want to say up front that this is not a hate video. This is not a takedown of goals or of Lisa or Anita or Rema, all of whom are genuinely talented artists who did not create this situation and who deserve to be discussed with fairness. What this is an honest and thorough examination of why one song from 4 years ago set a standard that has apparently proven very difficult to move. Because I think the answer to that question is genuinely fascinating and genuinely says something important about music and culture and the nature of moments that actually land versus moments that are designed to land. So if you are ready, let us get into it. Let me start by making sure everyone is oriented, because I know some people watching this may be coming from the football side rather than the music side, or may not have been following the K-pop world closely in 2022. The FIFA World Cup has a long and meaningful tradition of commissioning official anthems for each tournament. These songs are not just background music. They become part of how we remember the tournaments themselves. They become the sonic shorthand for entire months of shared human experience happening simultaneously across the entire planet. Waka Waka takes you back to South Africa 2010 in 3 seconds. The Cup of Life takes you back to France 1998. These songs carry memories in a way that very few pieces of music can, because they were attached to events that billions of people experienced together. For Qatar 2022, FIFA selected Jungkook as the primary performer of the official anthem, alongside Qatari artist Fahad Al-Kubaisi. And the resulting song, Dreamers, did something that World Cup anthems almost never do. It became a song people listened to outside of the tournament. It went on regular playlists. It showed up in non-football contexts. People who had never heard of BTS found themselves moved by it. Football commentators who had no knowledge of K-pop referenced it in broadcasts. It crossed over from official anthem into genuinely beloved piece of music that exists independently of the event it was commissioned for. And now, 4 years later, with goals as the new anthem, the comparison will not go away. So what happened? What did Dreamers do that has made it so difficult to follow? The first thing I want to talk about is what an anthem actually needs to accomplish, because I think this is the foundation of everything. An anthem is a very specific kind of musical challenge that is different from almost any other kind of song. It is not trying to be the most innovative piece of music. It is not trying to push any particular genre forward. It is not trying to express one artist's personal vision or emotional truth in the way that great albums do. An anthem is trying to make billions of people feel something specific at the same time. It is trying to create a shared emotional experience across languages, across cultures, across every kind of demographic difference that exists among the people watching the World Cup. And that means it has to operate in a register that is universal without being generic. Emotional without being manipulative. Big without being overwhelming. It has to have room inside it for the listener, which means it cannot be too dense or too specific or too complicated. It needs to be the kind of music that a crowd can inhabit rather than just observe. Dreamers understood this at a fundamental level. The production is sweeping and cinematic but not busy. It creates space rather than filling every available sonic moment with layers and complexity. The melody is immediately memorable, you can hum it after one listen, which is actually one of the hardest things to achieve in songwriting and one of the most important qualities for an anthem to have. And most importantly, the emotional register it occupies is exactly right. It sits in that specific place between hope and longing, between aspiration and arrival, that is exactly where a tournament anthem should live. It says, "We are here, we made it, and something beautiful is about to happen." Goals, by comparison, is more energetic, more celebratory, more focused on winning and confidence and the feeling of triumph. And on paper, these are not bad qualities for a World Cup anthem to have. Football is, after all, a sport about competition and victory. The energy of goals makes sense in the context of what it is trying to do. But here is the thing. The energy of goals is the kind of energy that works in a highlight reel. It works when you are watching a goal being scored and you feel that rush of adrenaline. But it is not quite the energy of the opening ceremony, which is a different emotional moment altogether. The opening ceremony of the World Cup is not about winning yet. Nobody has won anything. It is about possibility. About the world gathering. About what is about to begin. And Dreamers captured that specific emotional register, the before, the threshold moment, the collective holding of breath before everything starts, in a way that Goals, with its more triumphant energy, simply does not. Now let me talk about Jungkook specifically, because I think it is impossible to separate the success of Dreamers from the specific qualities that Jungkook brought to it. And I want to try to be precise about this rather than just saying he is talented and moving on, because I think what makes him specifically right for this specific assignment is something that can actually be articulated. Jungkook's voice has a quality that I have spent a lot of time trying to name accurately. The closest I can get is this: it sounds personal at scale. Most voices, when you amplify them to stadium or broadcast size, become somewhat anonymous. They become big, but in becoming big they lose a certain intimacy, a certain sense that a specific human being is speaking to you specifically. Jungkook's voice does not do that. It maintains its personal quality regardless of scale. When you hear him through a stadium sound system or through a television broadcast, it still feels like someone talking to you. Not to a crowd. To you. And this quality, which is not teachable and which either exists in a voice or does not, is precisely what an anthem needs, because an anthem has to make billions of individual people each feel like it was made for them specifically. There is also the matter of his performance at the opening ceremony itself, which I think is inseparable from the way Dreamers is remembered. He performed alone, at the opening of one of the most watched events in human history, in a packed stadium in Doha, and he did it with a stillness and a presence that remains genuinely remarkable to watch back. He did not try to fill the scale of the moment with big performance energy or elaborate choreography. He stood there and sang. He trusted the song and trusted his voice and trusted his presence to do the work. And that restraint, that confidence, made the moment bigger than any amount of production value could have. There is a specific kind of power that comes from an artist who does not feel the need to perform their emotion but simply has it, and that is what we saw from Jungkook that night in Doha. And it is part of why the memory of Dreamers is so strong. Now I want to address the lineup for Goals, because Lisa performing alongside Anita and Rema is genuinely an interesting and ambitious choice that deserves honest analysis. Three artists representing three different musical traditions in three different parts of the world: Asia, Latin America, and Africa, coming together for a song that is meant to represent the global nature of the World Cup. The concept is sound. The diversity of the lineup is real and meaningful. And all three performers are genuinely talented. Lisa is one of the most compelling performers in the world right now. Anita has built a global career on infectious, joyful pop music that crosses language barriers effortlessly. Rema's Calm Down proved that Afrobeats can reach literally every corner of the world. So why does Goals still end up being compared unfavorably to Dreamers in so many conversations? I think there are a few things happening simultaneously. The first is that three artists means three sets of sonic expectations and three sets of stylistic priorities that all need to coexist in one song, which makes the job of creating a unified emotional experience significantly harder. Dreamers is a unified song with a unified emotional arc. It builds and resolves in a way that feels complete. Goals, with its three distinct sections representing each artist's style, feels slightly more like a showcase than a journey. And anthems need to feel like journeys. They need to take you somewhere and bring you back. A showcase shows you different things. A journey moves you. And moving people is what anthems are built to do. The second thing is that there is a quality to goals that, despite the genuine talent involved, feels somewhat designed. Feels somewhat assembled from components that were selected for strategic reasons: geographic representation, demographic reach, streaming market coverage, rather than emerging organically from a genuine creative vision. And audiences feel this even when they cannot articulate it. There is a difference between music that was made and music that was built. Music that was made comes from somewhere real, from genuine artistic impulse, from a specific person's specific way of hearing and feeling the world. Music that was built was constructed to specifications. And the specifications were probably excellent. But the result, however technically accomplished, has a slightly different quality. A slightly less alive quality. And that quality, or lack of it, is what people are responding to when they say they prefer Dreamers without quite being able to explain why. I want to talk about the cultural context too, because I think it is relevant in ways that go beyond just the songs themselves. When Jungkook performed Dreamers in 2022, BTS was at the absolute height of their global cultural presence. They were not just famous. They were a genuine phenomenon. The kind of thing that comes along once in a generation, if that. And Jungkook stepping out as a solo performer at the World Cup opening ceremony was a specific kind of moment. It was the first real solo statement from one of the most recognized faces in global music, in one of the most watched moments in the world, and the weight of that specificity was palpable. It felt like something was happening. Something real and unrepeatable. And that feeling, that this is a moment, that something significant is occurring, is exactly what an anthem needs to create. It needs to feel like an event within the event. Goals did not quite create that feeling. Partly because the artists involved, however talented, do not collectively occupy the same kind of singular cultural moment that Jungkook and BTS occupied in 2022. And partly because the song itself, whatever its qualities, does not feel like it carries the weight of a specific, unrepeatable artistic statement. It feels like a good song made for a big occasion. Dreamers felt like a big occasion made real through a specific song. And the difference between those two things is everything. I also want to note something that is genuinely interesting from a music industry perspective, which is that this comparison is being made not just by ARMY, not just by K-pop fans, but by music journalists, football writers, casual viewers, people with no particular investment in Jungkook or BTS or K-pop who simply watched both opening ceremonies and found themselves reaching for Dreamers as the reference point. When a comparison transcends fanbase and enters general cultural conversation, it is telling you something real about the relative standing of the two things being compared. It is telling you that the quality of Dreamers has been recognized by people who have no particular reason to advocate for it. And that kind of recognition that comes from outside the community that loves an artist, is the most meaningful kind. There is also the streaming argument, which I want to address briefly because it comes up a lot and I think it is both relevant and limited. Dreamers performed extremely well on streaming charts following the 2022 World Cup, driven significantly by ARMY's organized and passionate streaming support. And yes, this matters. Streaming numbers are one of the metrics by which a song's cultural impact is measured. But streaming numbers alone do not explain why 4 years later, in a completely different tournament cycle, Goals is being compared to Dreamers rather than to any other anthem. Numbers can explain presence but not persistence. Dreamers has persisted not because of streaming numbers but because it left an impression. Because it did something to people. Because when people try to articulate what a World Cup anthem should feel like, they reach for it instinctively. And I want to close by saying something about what this whole conversation reveals about where we are in global music right now, because I think it is genuinely significant. The fact that a Korean artist's World Cup anthem from 2022 remains the benchmark for 2026 tells you something that goes well beyond Jungkook or BTS or K-pop. It tells you that the ground has shifted permanently. That the axis of global popular music no longer runs exclusively through the English-language Western mainstream. That a Korean man singing at a stadium in Qatar set a standard that a lineup of globally diverse artists in a stadium in Los Angeles has not yet surpassed. That the most emotionally resonant official anthem in FIFA World Cup history was made by someone who a decade ago would have been considered a niche artist in a niche genre by the people who make these decisions. That is extraordinary. And Jungkook, who is right now in the middle of the BTS Arirang World Tour giving everything to every city he performs in, who has been doing this for 13 years and shows no sign of diminishing, who set this standard almost casually on his way to becoming whatever he is still becoming, deserves to have that recognized. Not just within his fan base. Broadly. In the way that the World Cup conversation is already recognizing it, whether it means to or not. Goals is not a bad song. But Dreamers is a great one. And the difference between not bad and great is exactly the difference that billions of people can feel even when they cannot name it. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a comment telling me where you stand on this debate. Please subscribe if you have not already. And until next time, take care of yourselves, stay well, and purple you. Purple Heart.